how are you?
Hello, mate.
Hello.
Hi guys, how's it going?
All right.
How you all doing? I'm Tabriz, originally from Glasgow.
Hi, I'm Danny.
Hi, I'm Joel. I'm a motion graphic designer.
My name's Reese.
Hi everyone, I'm Jay. I'm from Newcastle.
Yeah, my name's Dan, aka Panda.
So I'm Dean, and I'm a photographer, really. That's kind of it.
I think we've got about 10, 15 people on. It's going to be like a night out in Newcastle with all the music heads. It's like for hours. This could literally go on for like 4 days, seriously. Like when Ali joins, it starts talking about disco, it's like it's good, but you're there until the end of the night, you know what I mean? So
I'm craving a night out now, Gareth. I'm craving a night out.
It's Jay's joined. Jay does all the visuals for the King Street Social Club in Newcastle, which is getting a lot of attention these days. So there's a lot of interesting stuff around that to talk about. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able, like I say, I don't think we're going to be able to kind of fit anywhere near as much of it in, because every single kind of person I think's got something interesting to talk about. What's that cap you got on?
It's House. House is a little natural wine, small plates bar in Heaton. So when they did merch, I had to get one.
We've got Red Rackham, who's our main sort of focal point to get started. But Danny's played with Vinny, as Ali will know. And I was saying, do you know Ali? Because Ali's them two are usually together. But yeah, I mean, I know you're all kind of in different ways. So yeah, we'll just crack on then, since we're already in and we've got a bunch of people here. Hello, Dean. What an honour to have you. How are you doing? Dean is a bit of a legend, by the way. I'm not sure if everybody knows who Dean is.
I think I can guess.
They put it this way: his photographs have been on some very, very famous mix CDs over the years.
Mm.
There he is.
Global Underground.
That's the one. Yeah.
Who guessed
So,
that?
Nice.
another. So during COVID as well, I reached out to Dean because I was doing all the CD stuff then, and he sent me a signed print of the Sasha in San Francisco picture, which I've actually got right there. I'll get it for you. So I still got it. I'll try not to smash everything on my desk, but I think he signed it, Dean, or maybe not, but that's it there anyway. So you'll know that picture. People's probably seen that many a time. But yeah, I was obsessed with that CD, as many of us were. I don't know if you know like Trevor in Newcastle, but he did the first ever Global Underground CD with Tony DeVee, and then Shorty for some reason took over and did like Global Underground 2 to Global Underground like 15, and I've ended up like becoming friends with most of them through just going out in Newcastle and doing a bit of work. So anyways, so what we'll do is just give you a little bit of context around what this is all about, because I appreciate you guys have just kind of joined very last minute, which is, I appreciate you kind of bravery and trusting to join something a bit random. But basically, as you might know, I've done a few like design events over the years, and it's really hard like putting an event on, because you just put so much effort into it, and we didn't charge for tickets. We never got paid. I did one with Tabs in Dubai. And really the best thing to come out of it is just getting everybody together and meeting new people and having conversations about work and design and whatever it is. And the reality is it's hard to do that, especially when I'm sort of not in, where everyone is, which is now Dubai or Newcastle, where we used to do stuff. So I thought, why don't we just do something online? And we did it about 6 months ago, and we got a bunch of designers on. But really the gist of things is that we all work in like industries where graphic design, film, media, animation, tech development, music, all of the above is just like the same thing, right? It's just one part of like this bigger sort of entertainment industry, essentially, or communication industry. So kind of mixing that a little bit, I think is really interesting. And it never really happens. Like podcasts are usually famous guy speaking to another famous person, and that's kind of the gist of it. But it's very rarely like a big mix of people just kind of like sitting in the pub having a chat, which is kind of why it's called the team lunch, because it's meant to be, we've all finished work on a Friday and we've kind of all gone to the pub. So that's the general gist of it. And then the kind of the slight angle of that today is that I wanted to give it a focus around like music and like sound, and obviously that's a big part of producing content and creativity. And then I noticed that Danny's post on LinkedIn, where he was mentioning his famous track was hitting 10 years and it was getting re-released. And then I just reached out to him and was like, oh, do you want to have a chat about that? We've been connected for a while online, and he said yes. Thanks for joining. And Gabriel and Tabs, we work together in sort of through AcidWorks as well. So before we get started, well, we're going to mostly just kick off with Dan, aka Red Rackham. Let's do a quick 10-second interview, introduction, what your name is, where you're from, and what you do. And I'm going to start in the top left corner, which is Dan Parsons, aka Panda, and then Gabriel can go second because he's always my number one for some reason in the top left. So Dan, 10 seconds. How you doing?
Time pressure here. Yeah, my name's Dan, aka Panda, DJ, music producer, and content creator for a record store in Portsmouth as well. But I am from a little town called Mainland.
Cool. Thank you very much. Tabs, you're up next.
How you all doing? I'm Tabriz, originally from Glasgow, worked in London for a while. Now I'm based in Dubai, been here 6.5 years. I am a designer, so started off with graphic design, now more into interaction design, experience design, UX, UI, and all that jazz. Yeah, and I fell in love with Gareth about 3 years ago. That's when we started our relationship. That's me.
It's not the first time I've heard that. Right, next to Daniel, aka Mr. Red Rackham.
Hi, I'm Danny. I've lived in many different places, but sort of recently it was Berlin, then back to UK, Bristol, and I'm currently in Sheffield. I make music, but since COVID, I've shifted from being a sort of traditional music producer and DJ to teaching other people and basically doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff to artist development, basically.
Brilliant, thank you. Joel, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Joel. I'm a motion graphic designer based in Manchester, but originally from just outside Sheffield. So nice to hear someone's a bit more local. I predominantly make media content for museums, exhibitions, and installations, like immersive films and interactives and things like that.
Right, thank you, Joel. Over to Jay in Newcastle.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Jay. I'm from Newcastle, North Shields. I come from a graphic design background, trained in London, and I moved back to Newcastle about 2 years ago. I do a lot of sort of audio reactive stuff in the music space. So I switch between sort of graphics, standard graphics, and yeah, the fun stuff, which is the music.
Amazing, thanks very much. Ali, your bottom left, how you doing?
Yeah, good follow on, given that Jay's in North Shields as well. I'm Ali from Newcastle, live in North Shields. I am senior buyer at End, been in the fashion industry about 15 years, but kind of probably more part-time DJ now. I run Night Dancing, which is a little collective in Newcastle, associated with Vinny, which some of you know, and sort of I'm known for playing very slow jazz and slow disco records during daytimes in various locations.
Awesome. All right, Dharma, Reese.
Oh yeah. My name's Reese. Yeah, I'm originally from Sunderland, but now I'm like London based. I make music and basically produces Dharma, release on RNS and a few other labels.
Thank you very much. Dean Belcher.
So I'm Dean, and I'm a photographer, really. That's kind of it. That's all I do. I guess in the context of this conversation, maybe you'll know more of my work through the Global Underground stuff, but that's really just a small part of, I work for lots of different clients, but music, that's the sort of main music stuff I still do, which is like, oh God, how long have I been doing it? 30 years or something. I'm the old boy here, by the looks of it.
Got a few years on us, but I guess not that much these days. It's funny hearing you say that it's just a small part of what I do, but for many of us, like, we idolize those images, you know. So it's I'm sure you know the impact they've had. Oh, sorry, we've got Gabriel as well. Gabriel, do you want to say hi?
Yeah. Hello, I'm Gabriel. I'm a junior graphic designer and automotive photographer. And I've worked with Garrett for the past 2 years, based in Portugal.
Thank you very much. Okay, so without further ado, let's get straight to probably the only question I've got for the entire conversation, which is for Daniel, and then we can just kind of riff on other things, which is, I've got a little notepad in, but so as someone who's had quite a lot of success with a kind of a very creative piece of music, which was generally regarded as something very unique and original, What is your take on how you produce original sound? How's your experiences been, you know, just releasing music and making good stuff, really?
Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining today, and thank you for the invite, Gareth. So, I mean, there's a lot of cliches coming up, but essentially the most original person you can be is yourself. But the challenge in, especially with today's kind of, you know, FOMO and social media kind of driven society, is being yourself, trusting your own ideas, and also not having other people interfering in your vision. That is the challenge. Not even people, you know, financial factors. You might have a family, etc. I've mentored like hundreds of artists since 2020, and the challenge with everyone always is to basically support them in, you know, believing in themselves and thinking that there's value in what they're doing without anybody else saying that there's value. And as we're all kind of performers, you know, whether you're, you know, delivering something, you know, like if you're working for a client, you're delivering something, aren't you? You're expected to deliver. So essentially, we're all kind of doing a sort of a dance for, you know, some cash at the end of the day, whatever the context. It's hard when you're in that position to not think that you have to please people. I played the demo of Wonky Bassline Disco Banger to quite a few people. A lot of them said, this is going to change your life. Oh my God. But some of them recoiled in horror when the wonky noise came in, because that was the thing that essentially made it stand out and made it memorable. And they just thought it was madness. You know, they were like, this is not, you know, literally physically in pain. And quite a few people, I think it's interesting that I have to say, it's not my favorite tune, you know, because it was so popular and so successful because it was actually more, I guess, almost like palatable for the masses. Whereas where I'm coming from as an artist, or where I thought I was I was the opposite of that. I was trying to do things that were cutting edge and weird and mad, which is kind of the I guess why it was successful, because it was a combination of things being palatable and then my madness or my attempt at madness together, and I made it work. I mean, but what I would say is that for originality or whatever, or for being creative, again, cliche city here, but I think your life experiences, you know, the joy and pain of life. I'm not saying you have to suffer to make good art at all by any means, but I've heard fantastic music, the most cutting edge, amazing music from people that have no formal training, don't have any aspirations to be a successful producer, and are very nonplussed when you go, oh my God, this is genius. And they're like, well, I work in a factory, or, you know, in the same with everything, where the fetishization of DJing by certain people and the elevation of, you know, if you have a rotary mixer, then you're a better DJ and all that, the selector culture. Some of the best DJs that I know in the world have never played in public, you know? So again, I think we need to start to kind of, I want to say judge, but things should be kind of recognized by the quality of the actual output rather than the status of the person. And again, this comes back to the thing of, if you're not in a position where people are going, oh wow, you're amazing, oh, it is challenging sometimes to believe that what you're doing has any value. So yeah, so a bit of a diatribe there, but do we want to hand that over to the group?
Yeah, no, that was awesome. Dharma, I know what I like about your sound is that I kind of seen, for lack of a better term, the sort of like the ravey influence or the rave and breakbeat influence coming through maybe around 2015, I would say, probably a bit before, mainly through people like Lone and stuff like that. And I really got into that, and then gradually seeing more and more things picking up, and that's how I kind of discovered yourself. The Special Requests kind of picked it up massively. The thing that I find interesting about the music industry is the balance between, or not necessarily the balance, but the kind of like the lifespan that a sound has. And when it starts to become really, really popular, that's already at a point where it's probably really, really boring for the vast majority of people, or the more kind of nuanced music heads, for lack of a better term. And kind of how it stays around for so long. And I think in my opinion, I've kind of seen that with like your classic sort of like tech house, as we would call it. And I've got friends who promote parties in Ibiza, and they seem like they're still doing the same thing and the same DJs, and you know, you see them all the time headlining like the different clubs. But how it also feels like that's completely gone now, and actually all the young people, or all of us are probably listening to more like your sort of your garage influence stuff, your rave influence stuff. You kind of like, not to say some obvious names, but like your Fred Agains and your Floating Points and your what's it called, Caribous, and these guys just seem to be sort of like bringing such a newness and energy to UK music again. And but it's kind of that cycle of stuff becoming like dying off and like new things coming through, and that kind of seeing that kind of age happening in music. I kind of think about that a little bit. But anyway, back to what I was asking, how do you kind of find that you doing your sound and that slightly more non-typical big club sound, how do you kind of balance that and kind of go about your thing?
Yeah, that's been a bit of a struggle. So like with like a lot of the stuff that I've been releasing over the last 5 years, I haven't really been paying attention to particularly what's popular, or like what would like really like, you know, like break me, for example. And that has definitely hindered me 100%. Similarly, what I've been having to do a little bit to get some tracks signed is just like compromise a little bit with my sound, which can be a little bit difficult. Sometimes you got to make stuff that people want to listen to, because sometimes I'm just making just really mad stuff that's inside my head, and unfortunately a lot of that's not going to get signed, and then a lot of people aren't going to like want to release that sort of music. Yeah, it's difficult to navigate things and keep your uniqueness. I find that is something that I'm constantly battling with, for sure. Yeah,
sounds like Daniel's got a lot of experience in helping with that question. But you got your hand up, Daniel.
I just wanted to caveat to react to what Reese was saying. Thank you, Reese. Was that yeah, I released Wonky Bassline Disco Banger on my own label. No one would have signed it. I pressed up 300 copies because the distributor, I just started working with Prime. We didn't know what was going to happen. And by the end of the first year, it had sold over 3,000 copies, and it had been licensed to Defected, which I wouldn't say I regret, but, you know, essentially that watered down the original idea, but obviously meant it got played on Radio 1 about 50 times. So I got more money. But essentially, yeah, my point was just to say that everything significant that's happened in my career pretty much, right, has been when I've done my own label. So I did an album in 2010. I did a launch party in Phonica and in-store, and then I did a launch party in Tokyo and Roppongi Hills and then my, you know, Wonky Bassline Disco Bang was on my label, and then I did my self-portrait album in 2017, which led to 2 separate huge kind of world tours. I got a residency on Rinse FM. Pete Tong, I did a mix on Pete Tong's show on the day of the album launch. And again, no label is ever gonna push for you ever a percentage of what you can push for yourself. So anyway, I'll go back to Meat.
But when you made the track, was there a little bit of an inkling of, yeah, this is a little bit more like, I don't know, not commercial in the sense, but did you feel as if this would be a track that would maybe get played a little bit more than some of the other stuff that you were making?
Well, I'd had outliers. So I did the Joubert Singers Stand on the Word remix in 2008.
Yeah.
And that was what got me on Giles Peterson's map, which then got me to play at the Worldwide Awards with a very young Sam Shepard.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really bizarre looking back. Me and Sam were the new Bright Hopes. I wasn't that young. I wasn't as young as him, but we were the Bright Hopes in 2009 because we were the only new artists playing at the Worldwide Awards. The rest of it was Laurent Garnier, you know, Jazzanova, Marlena Shaw. And then I did, I've had a few tracks. I did a track called How I Program, which is what I called my brand, my teaching brand, you know, because obviously it's a pun, isn't it? You know, because, you know, it's a program and I make music, so I'm programming, and you're also social programming. But basically that had an incredibly loud bass noise in it, and that was played by, you know, from quartet to Kyle Hall, you know, Move D played it in Panorama Bar when I was there and sort of pointed at me, which was kind of embarrassing, but it felt good. You know, but basically that was, so there was already the ingredients, but this was the first time that I'd ever got a kind of commercial disco house loop that was palatable to the masses, and then put a too loud bass noise on it. But when I was writing it, I'd been awake for over 50 hours.
Right.
And it's a really funny story. I lost the whole thing because Logic doesn't have an autosave, or I didn't know how to do autosave. And I'd removed my laptop battery because it was expanding and you couldn't use the trackpad properly on my MacBook. That was a very common issue with MacBook Pros circa, you know, 2000, whenever, 11, 12. So this is 2014. So I was using a laptop that had a power supply, but if the power supply got pulled out, then, and I Skyped my friend Chrissy to sort of play it to her because I wanted some kind of affirmation that this was special.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to feel that I wasn't a complete loser in life because I'd been awake for 50 hours and I was on my own producing in my bedroom in an altered state, kind of probably feeling a bit like I'd got a lifestyle problem, you know, which I did. And, you know, so I Skyped Chrissy and she's like, oh yeah, that sounds great, Danny. And I moved the laptop a little bit to get a better Skype signal. And and it went out and I lost the whole thing. And I had to remake it from memory the next morning. And I felt like I'd been hit with sticks all over my body. It was woke up like literally unable to kind of, you know, you're like, but I could copy myself. I have a photographic memory. So essentially what I did was I basically, it's one of the positives of having ADHD is you have a photographic memory for certain things. So I basically recreated the whole thing, but the wonky noise was slightly better on the original one, just slightly. There was something that was better about it. And at the time that tortured me because obviously I was not feeling very happy with myself. So that track was lost. It was completely lost.
That's mad.
But I got it back and it ended up being this life-changing event. But the inclination about it being special, you kind of hope that everything you're doing is special. But no one hears. I mean, how much a percentage of your music do people hear, Reese? Probably what, 3%?
Like I make so much stuff, to be honest, and it just it's very difficult to just get it heard in the first place just by a very small amount of people. I would say that like there is a level of appeasement where you are making music for other people, and I guess what you were saying before about sort of like keeping, you know, you were saying about like how you were like making something that was like palatable, but at the same time you still have a bit of yourself in you. I went completely in the other direction where I was just making music for myself, and when I was sharing it, all the people that heard it were just like, oh yeah, this is great, but like I have no idea where this fits. And I think that's good, and I hold on to that kind of thing. But I feel like recently I've had to compromise a little bit in my sound, just a little bit, and I don't know, a little bit more danceable, just a little bit, but keeping a bit of myself in it. And I think with that compromise, it's actually maybe improved my music a little bit because I've gotten a little bit outside my head, and I'm actually sort of like maybe connecting with people more. It's a little less self-absorbed. So
I'll jump in because we've got 30 minutes and I want to chat to Dean a little bit, as well as the topic of music and community and kind of organizing things, which we all play a part in. So one thing that I also think is quite an interesting thought, and I've kind of seen this when I've lived outside of the UK, is that, and I think we've all got friends who've been successful with this, or ourselves have been to an extent. But when you do stuff and you know, putting on club nights, or you're DJing, or you've got a label or whatever it might be, you don't kind of realize the compound sort of culture value that has over a period of time. And then, you know, like if we look back to like early 2000s Newcastle, or even like late 2000s Newcastle, and I'm sure it's the same for all you guys in different cities, the stuff that we were doing and the quality of people involved in that stuff was like through the roof, right? And then you go to other countries where they've just not necessarily got that kind of like swell of stuff happening or talent, and you see the value that that's got, and then the fact that that can turn into like a cultural, physical, financial, real thing that can spread around the world. And like a good example of that is like grime coming out of London, right? And it's massive. But the guys who were doing all of that back in like the early 2000s, again, they probably had no idea that what they were creating was something that was going to become like a movement globally, right? It's the same with hip hop, same with house music. But you know, like you talk about like what Jeff's doing in Newcastle with the King Street Social and all of that, that kind of community spirit, and how that is kind of becoming very, very important these days with the change in the club scene, and the way the technology is kind of becoming this kind of like cloud experience rather than like real touch and feel like it kind of used to be, and that kind of pivot now back to that, which I think is gaining value, right? I just think all of that's really important. So here we've got, for context, we've got Jay, who does all the AV, the King Street Social. We've got Ali, who just does loads of stuff around Newcastle. We've got Dan Pandar, who does all the stuff down the south of the UK as well. What's your thoughts on kind of like creativity and community, and that kind of like that I don't know if really it's a direct question around it. It's almost more like the act of doing has value, especially over time. Yeah, Dan's got his hand up. My questions are very vague today. I apologize.
No. I was going to say the only real example I have of that at the moment is I've sort of fallen in love with BBE Store. I don't know if people are too familiar with that space and that sort of culture around London. But it's, for those that don't know, it's essentially a record store that becomes a venue at night, and you get a prime opportunity to see a lot of really incredible artists for free. And that to me has been like my biggest community moment that I've had since I started playing and started making music, just because it feels so like old school rooted in the fact that people are going there to dance and connect and make friends. And I think going back to that kind of culture again, coming from a small town outside of London, it feels like less pressure of being able to have to fit in a certain way or have to do a certain thing that makes you be in the right lane with music and in this industry. So yeah, I just wanted to say that really, that, you know, there are spaces that do exist in the UK that are still pushing like some really big cultural moments in the underground that, and I think BBE is a bit of a prime example to me personally.
Yeah, I've not been to that store yet. I did go to Jazzy Sport in Tokyo and Kyoto before. I've got a couple of their t-shirts. So Ali, what's your thoughts? Ali's got his hand up. Yeah, go on. What's your thoughts on all of this?
Just on the back of Dan's point, I mean, the BBE store, I've not actually been yet. I had tickets for that first Make House Deep Again, and then I couldn't go because I was ill. But I'm down in London again soon. Like, I'm hoping to get to it. Like, all I've heard is really, really good things about it. But I think it's really interesting. It kind of ties in with the point that guys were discussing earlier about kind of being true to yourself. What I think is really interesting here is that I'm probably older than a lot of you, right? And I've at least been involved in this sort of scene for a long time. If you think about what we were doing in Newcastle in like 2002, 2003, 2004, it was just mega authentic because it had to be a small city and a small scene. But now it's good to see, like, you know, 20 odd years later, what people are doing, particularly young people who are really, really passionate about music, is essentially the same thing. You know, like that Make House Deep Again thing is like, that's the shit I was finding in from the mid-90s and the early 2000s, and making sure we had a space to play it in Newcastle, whether it was just a small pub somewhere, like whatever it was. But now it's fun that, you know, with EDM and all that shit and all this massive kind of focus on dance music, people are still finding small spaces and authentic opportunities to be able to really, really like do something that's unique. I think that's amazing, and it shows it all goes full circle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite good mates with Luke, say Lucas, because he's 22 years old, which is mind blowing to me.
I wonder how old he was. He looks quite young.
Yeah, but he's an insane selector, and there's this real push of like young vinyl DJ culture in London again, which like I'm a bit of a solid part of now, I feel like, which is amazing because I think it's sort of very reminiscent of the roots where people are bored of this sort of digital format DJing, and it feels a bit too saturated in a way. And I think people are now like getting back into the love of like where the roots of this stuff came from. And for me, vinyl is such an important part of my like music journey as a DJ now, that I basically only play vinyl only sets. I don't really touch USB anymore. I haven't really touched my USB and record box in about 3 years, but I think there's a real push of that sort of vinyl community culture in the younger aspects of dance music again, and it's through social media, which is the weird part, because social media feels like very formulaic and very like people just wanting to get clout, but I think people are using it to connect and build community again, at least within sort of my world down south, which feels, you know, really just gratifying again, you know.
Joel's got his hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite interested in seeing the cross-platform community as well. I think there's a lot of projects coming out at the moment, such as Kiskadee's working with an animator called Neil Coughlin, working on kind of live event and experiences that it's not necessarily just going to listen to the music, but it's how he's collaborated with a visual artist or putting on an exhibition. Or I work with Worker that's based in Manchester, and we have a project all about the temperate rainforest in the UK. Wonder what everyone's experience is in kind of how different media has been mixing together to create those different communities, especially when working with ours is, you know, quite nature based. So it's bringing in people that are, you know, people like Earth Sonic that I know of. They've helped Bicep make their recent film To Cook with Zach Norman. And even that as an example in itself, like you were saying, Reese, you've got so much music that no one will ever hear. Trying to find those other platforms where you can kind of, I don't know, it lends itself to that community who really want to hear that. Like I imagine everyone in this chat really wants to hear that kind of stuff, that's that kind of purest form of your creativity. So I guess interested in seeing how everyone else feels about those kind of communities that are coming together, that's not just necessarily pure music, but other elements are coming in as well. I guess Dean as well, your photography coming to that as well.
Yeah. Am I supposed to put my hand up? Sorry, I'm not very good at these things.
Go for it.
Am I muted? No,
you're right. We've got you. Go on.
Sorry. I've never really done lots of these. Yeah. So going back to what Dan and Ali were saying about community, that's quite interesting, because not many people know. Well, most people probably do actually, that I speak to. But this isn't really my scene. I don't know half of what you're talking about. You know, you're talking about people I have no idea. You might as well be speaking in another language. But I have of a certain age been involved in other scenes, soul and reggae and funk and all those sort of things, and you see exactly the same thing has happened. There's a real young group of 20-year-olds who've taken on the same thing that we were doing in the 80s and the 90s and that, and they've made it their own. They're like these little clubs everywhere, mostly in London, but all over the country, and they're all kind of like created this completely old new scene. So instead of being full of 50-year-old bods like us still poodling along, it's like 25-year-olds, 20 to 25-year-olds, and they're all finding new tunes and some, you know, rediscovering old things. And yeah, very much vinyl. I mean, but that's because of I suppose that's because of the type of music it is, rather than the fact that it's you know, because there was really no, you know, electronic versions of it anyway. Although, to be honest with you, if it was me, I would probably want to be playing the best records I could find, not vinyl. Not, you know, there's a lot of snobbishness about it being on the original vinyl and, you know, that sort of thing. I would want it to be just the best records I could buy, or find. So to play it out on a USB wouldn't bother me. But obviously for these clubs, it's all about, I found this £100 record or 250 quid rare, you know, whatever, in the back of a place in Birmingham or something, you know. So it's all about that, but that's fine. And going back to talking about what you were talking about, Joel, the sort of mix up of music and visuals. Yeah, we're finding, and we're actually trying to work on an immersive experience at the moment with my stuff and the music, and it's really exciting. It's taken a very long time to come together. Like, we've been talking for a year, realistically. Started out, I was talking to someone about just putting some pictures on the wall, and now we've kind of gone into this whole idea of an immersive experience. But yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to go.
Kind of happens like that, isn't it? When you start, it's the same exactly with this call as a little microcosm of that. You have a little idea, the next thing you know, there's like 10 cool people on. But yeah, me and Tabs did an event in Dubai, and that was meant to be just be a get together. And then we took over an entire hotel. We had 2 floors. Our friend Rick worked for a big sound system company. Ali knows him, and he brought in like this mega sound system. And he only charged us like about 300 quid to hire it. And it was like in this decent sized bar, but it was still way too advanced for the bar. But we just went to town on it, and we got other design agencies to send us artwork. And that was the one that we did at the World Expo, actually. But yeah, it's kind of always done that, right? Just try to do things and get people together and see what comes out of that. Just so everyone gets a little chance to chat. Jay, how have you been finding sort of the things happening in like North Shields? And I've not had the chance to go yet, unfortunately, but pretty much everybody that I know in the music industry does go, and got a lot of good things to say about it. What you've been up to with all of that?
Yeah, if anyone hasn't been, if you're in Newcastle, you should definitely sort of head to King Street Social. Yeah, I'm just making some visuals at the minute for Palms Tracks is playing on Sunday in an underground sort of car park in North Shields. Which, yeah, it's just sort of amazing that Jeff's bringing massive sort of international artists to a place like North Shields, which I never thought, I can walk home in 10 minutes. Just even these artists being in Newcastle is sort of a massive thing. But I guess that relationship between visuals and music, I guess for me personally, it's just I've always sort of loved my electronic music, but then also being a graphic designer, and it's kind of come, I guess, full circle for me. Just sort of going to sort of similar places, Ali, when I was sort of 16, meeting older people, and sort of used to work for a night called Loop, which was like a sort of tech house brand at the Cup. And that's sort of, yeah, and when I moved to London, I was sort of getting sort of FOMO of what was happening in Newcastle and sort of missing out. And I wasn't going out a lot in London because I had no money as a student, but I could see, like, people doing really cool stuff. Yeah, Dean, as you were saying, there was like a night being run by sort of people younger than me, even when I was at uni, called Shy Benz, which is at Cobalt, and they're sort of, yeah, killing it and doing really cool stuff. So yeah, it made me really want to come back. And then yeah, I just messaged Jeff out of the blue and said I'm doing projections and visuals, and I'd love the opportunity to sort of show my work. And I've just been really lucky, and he's just been really generous to sort of let me go ahead. He doesn't give me much of a brief. He just says sort of do what you want, which for me, it's like, it's not my bread and butter. My sort of graphic design and sort of this sort of corporate stuff I find a bit boring, but the visual kind of aspect with music gives me sort of chance to experiment and make more mistakes, because if it's moving and it's sort of for the beat of music, people don't kind of recognize any mistakes you make, so it kind of pushes me as a sort of experimental designer, I suppose. But yeah, I think I've lost my trail of thought and forgot what your original question was.
What software are you using to do it all?
A mix. I use a lot of After Effects. I'm not a motion designer, so I sort of switch it up. I've been learning Touch Designer. Just started a course last week. Do a bit of Blender. Yeah, I don't want to be a jack of all trades, but I'm massively ADHD, so I get quite bored working on one thing. So I kind of learn little bits of different bits of software. So I wouldn't call myself a pro in any kind of different software, but yeah.
I like sorry to jump in. I like what you said about Jeff said, just do it and just do what you want. I think it's really rare, but we kind of know because we're kind of in that mindset. But it's rare for people to just say, "I'm pleased you're helping. Just do whatever you want." You know, like I'm pleased you're want to take part, and like even like you guys doing this. You know, when we did the event in Dubai, there was a comedian guy at a stand-up night, and he works for Apple doing all their podcasts. And I was like, mate, I'd love you to be a MC at our event we're doing because I need like a mic guy. And he was like, no worries, I'll do it. And he didn't even doubt. And you know, that like mindset of just saying yes to doing stuff because it's cool or it's just fun or you're just helping people out is really important. But the thing is, I've got other friends where you're sort of desperately trying to convince them that it's a good thing to do. And it's like, do you want to take part? And they're like, oh no, well, what are you going to pay me? Or what's in it for me? And it's like, it's not about that. It's just about doing cool stuff together, you know, but they're just not wired the same way, you know. Who's got the hand up? Danny, go ahead.
I just wanted to say on that note that with my mentoring stuff, I made the most stupid idea ever, which was every month I was going to invite a very famous music artist to do a masterclass for a nominal fee. I mean, I can't afford to pay them £1,000. Do you know what I mean? And it's been really interesting who's said yes and who said no, just on that note. And no judgment of anybody. I understand people have different circumstances. People maybe have anxiety about doing, you know, calls like this, you know, etc. I mean, I'm a little bit anxious because I normally use Zoom and it's normally my community. So when I'm in this situation, I feel like I'm really fresh. But I just wanted to say that it's been really interesting that the most successful people, in inverted commas, that I worked with were like the kindest, least uptight, made me feel like I wasn't, you know, other people made me feel like it was an insult to them that I was asking them, or they were really, you know, the money wasn't enough, or, you know, I'm too busy, you know, or, you know, and all this. And I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm saying, you know, are you interested? You know, would that be okay? But yeah, without naming names, several of the most sort of, you know, best known people, they didn't even invoice me, you know. I mean, they didn't care about the money or anything. They wanted to give something back. They wanted to get to nerd out about their craft, you know, which was for me really, you know, but interesting, isn't it? That the people that have done the best, in inverted commas, were the easiest to work with. Mic drop.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, we did a call with Simon Dixon a couple of episodes ago, and he calls it like altruism and helping other people. And he said that if somebody's already gone to the effort of organizing something to help others, like the least I can do is just turn up, you know. And I thought that was really nice when he said that. He said it on a place called Plymouth Design Forum, and I think it's a couple of lecturers from Plymouth, and they've started doing a podcast during COVID, and then they've gone on to putting their design events on. It's really good. They've got pretty much all not all the go-to names in the design industry, but Simon's definitely one of them. But he's just such an authentic, on-point guy. I really recommend you watch that and the one that we did as well. Dean, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what Dan said actually a little bit, that one of the reasons why I think that's the case of that those people are the most accommodating is I think the people who are most successful in any sort of creative industry are the ones who are curious, and curiosity is the thing that so I'll go along to I don't go along to, like, you know, the opening of a crisp packet or whatever, but I'll go along to lots of things. And I know lots of interested people who are, you know, I try to tell it to my kids as well. And when I was teaching a little bit, I'd always tell the students, just do it, go along. It's going to take you an hour or 2 hours of some time, if it's free, especially. You might get one tiny little inkling of information that'll either change the way you think or spark an idea. You know, that's what curiosity is. You absolutely have to remain curious if you're going to be creative, no matter what field it is, I think. And I was just going to say that I think the reason why most of the most successful ones are the ones that are most willing is because of that. They're still curious. You know, it doesn't make any difference. You know, I mean, obviously they've got a few quid behind them, so it doesn't really matter. But you know, but yeah, and they can afford to do that. But yeah, I think that's, you know, it's just as simple as that, really.
Yeah, I think for me, if you do it because you enjoy it, you tend to say yes to a lot of things.
Yeah, you do.
I think we all probably. I mean, I'm trying to do this like village Instagram where I live to help all the local businesses out, and I'm now at a place where I've got to do like Instagram reels for like 6 different coffee shops, and just been in the local museum today, which was amazing. It's the first time I've been in. I was like, I can't believe I've never been here. There's like original kind of Korean hanok dresses and like horse, what do you call them? What's the thing you put on a horse again? A seat? What's a horse seat called? A saddle. Horse saddle. Like all Korean horse saddles and all Korean like horns and trumpets. And I was like, this is amazing. How have I not been here? So I want to go and help them as much as I can, but then I'm like, I need to get a bit more work in, and you know, but you just want to kind of do stuff, right? Joel's got his hand up.
Yeah, I worked on a project with Malcolm Garrett a couple of years ago, who he did a load of record sleeves for like Duran Duran and Buzzcocks and things like that, and kind of came back to what you were just saying, Gareth, about curiosity. He's got some insane stories, but he was essentially a student, and they knew he was a graphic designer, and he was good at it. So he just said, fuck it, yeah, of course I'll do it. And it changed his world. So yeah, that kind of, that idea of curiosity and just wanting to dive in because it kind of gets you excited. And what Jay was saying about that freedom that you've been given by someone that has that, I don't know, that ability to take a step back and trust. I think that element of trust kind of frees up your creativity, and you're allowed to make those mistakes, which helps you learn, which helps you kind of grow as a designer or a creative, whatever industry that is.
Thank you so much. Tabs, you got your hand up?
I've got to drop off soon. So I just wanted to say thanks to you, Gareth, for setting this up, and just thanks to everyone for your wise words. I've actually got a call with a new client in 8 minutes. So it's set me up quite nicely for that, just getting the mindset ready. But also just a big thanks to Dean as well for all that photography you did in Global Underground. I think, you know, I was, you know, young, fresh-faced graphic design student. You know, I was mostly influenced by all the stuff on Warp Records. That's kind of what got me into graphic design, all that.
Oh yeah, that stuff's amazing, isn't it?
But so was your stuff, you know, like all that photography, just like, and that was the days when it was like you'd buy a CD, you know, you'd buy a CDs. I've still got my Global Underground, like the long one. I can't remember. Was it Sasha and Digweed? I think it was. But it's just like, you know, back in the day, you chuck a CD on, you're listening to it. What do you do whilst you're listening to it? You're going through the booklet, you know, and you're just kind of going through all these photos. And it's photography of a time that you've not been part of in person, but in a way it kind of imprints on you. So when I hear, like, I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about it, but when I hear that music, I think about that imagery, even though I was never there in person. So it's got like a really...
it's done its job.
Yeah. So it's done its job. So yeah, good job, Dean.
Oh, thank you. And the words of Dom as well were always useful for that. You know, the sleeve notes took us on between the two things. I always felt, you know, because I was there and I could read it and I, oh God, yeah. You know, actually, he took me on a journey because I couldn't take it all in as I was doing it often. It's when you go back and you go, oh God, yeah, that time we was in that taxi or or we were doing that, you know, and he was like, and he always had lots of adjectives to describe things as well, very well.
Yeah. Oh, it's so nice. Good copywriting and good photography is rare, but when it works, it really does.
It did.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Cheers.
Good luck with the meeting.
Likewise.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You, Clyde.
Bye-bye.
But yeah, I think kind of what I was saying earlier about like the impact those things had, like they literally inspired me to be a graphic designer. Those in video games. So the Taz mentioned the long Global Underground CD. I had the Sasha one, and I used to be more of like a house head really, but then I kind of, all my mates were more like progressive house and Sasha and Digweed and all the Renaissance CDs, and you know, I've still got the Flower CD here, which is, I mean, I personally think this is probably one of the most beautiful things. Oh, sorry, my webcam has just moved around, but I think that CD, the simplicity of it, it's all a bit old and crusty now, but the inside's still good. But I mean, just look at that, man. It's like having the confidence to do that on a triple pack CD. I mean, that visual there again is like possibly the most beautiful piece of artwork I think I've ever owned, you know, and like just inspired me so much to be a graphic designer. I mean, I did this for Eddie. Eddie, you'll know. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Eddie from Hood Tracks, but we used to be students together at Sunderland Uni. He used to DJ for me. I think we did that. 3 months ago. I've not opened it yet. So been helping him again because he's trying to push that a bit harder. Didn't get paid a penny. We just did it for fun, you know. But yeah, just like the old this and the CD page that we do, like resurfacing that and making sure that it kind of stays around is like really interesting and important. And I really liked when Dean was doing his talk through some of the photographs, and he talked about the Sasha picture on a recent Instagram. Like I sometimes get a bit frustrated that as much as there's thousands of people around the world who listen to Classic Mix CD series on a probably a daily basis, it's got like 10 million plays on SoundCloud or whatever it is. Like sort of what Dan was saying about reaching out to people and they're not interested. I've also kind of reached out to people and they've just been like, yeah, whatever. And I remember seeing Carl Craig in High in the beta, and I was like, mate, I've got your first CD, and it's like number 3 on the Classic Mix CD series. And he just couldn't. He just looked at me as if like, I don't know what it is, not interested. And I was just like, ah. And another story, Louis Vega was doing a gig at a beach bar in Dubai, and somebody gave me the cassette of his United DJs of America mix. So it was the cassette. And it was like really precious. I think I bought it off. I don't think someone gave it to me. I think I bought it off Discogs, and I wrote in there, I want you to have this, and can you just please follow my page? And I give it to him, and I was like, oh, I've got a gift for you. And he kind of looked at it, and he was like, oh, okay, cheers. And like, you know, nothing against the bloke. I've never met him before, but I thought he'd really appreciate it, and it just kind of like disappeared into nothing, you know. So it's funny how one person can pick something up, whereas there's 100 others where it'll just kind of disappear, you know.
But remember,
sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, no one has any obligation. You know what I mean? It's like expectation, disappointment. You know, it's probably better to go into and also everyone has a story. That's been told to me so many times. Everyone has a story. You know, because I felt, you know, misaligned or, you know, whatever. And, you know, yeah, everyone's having a different day, you know. Yeah, I've said no to many, many, many people at the drop of a hat. And this conversation has made me see it from a completely different point of view. And also now I'm experiencing people saying no to me, of course. I mean, they've said no for 30 years, but, you know, if you're personally invested in it, then you can take it personally, but it's not personal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was all right. I wasn't sort of crying into my beer glass or anything. I was just like, this might be the moment it gets bigger. Funny enough, Defected did an article on their website, and it was all about the importance of mix CDs, and about 90% of the SoundCloud links were all mine.
Wow.
So yeah, but nobody reached out. But you know, happy for that. But I mean,
I just wanted to say, if anyone wants to give me a list of 100 DJs, I can give you firsthand, you know, whether they're worth approaching or not. You know, he's a wanker, she's all right, you know. Yeah.
I think in a scene that where, you know, most of us are probably into things that are quite underground, you find people are more approachable. But Derek Carter, you know, not someone I know well, but every time I've met Derek or kind of like tagged him in things, I spoke to him online over the years, like he's always been really approachable. And he has a story that I heard years ago of when he was young, I think it was Prince or something, he was in a club and Prince was there and he was like, shit, I love Prince, I'm going to go up and speak to him. And he went over and it was like this big like security guy was like, no, you can't go in, I can't see him kind of thing. And Derek was like, from then on, it was like, if I become anything, I'll like be more approachable. And I think that's probably quite a good sort of way to be in this world. It gets you a lot further.
a weird experience I've had a lot throughout my career is people publicly co-signing me, people doing social media. I mean, you know, words that, you know, I would never, you know, like I'm not going to say them, but, you know, like very high praise, like the highest praise you could ever have. Record stores, people publicly in interviews saying that blah blah, and then you meet them and it's totally, I don't know if it's performative, but they're just like, hey, you know, that's weird, because like anyone that I'm gonna big up, you know, like I care about their welfare. Do you know what I mean? Because I value what they're bringing. So I do feel sometimes with a lot of artists nowadays, and if it's nowadays, you're a content provider for their movie.
Dan too.
Yeah, I was going to say that's very well said, because I feel like there's a difference between clout and community, and I think some people, especially younger people coming up in a creative industry or scene, they're sort of like obligated to want to be active and proactive with speaking to people. But I think the longer you're in the scene and it wears you down a little bit over time, I think it shows a lot of character for people to still be proactive and still be engaging with you, and not so much just because they want something back from you, but because they're actually interested in what you have to say as much as they're interested in you, you know.
100%. We're on the hour, by the way, so it's been a really good chat. I think there's been loads of good stuff there. I'd love to kind of go in a lot more detail with pretty much every individual person here, but obviously that'll take us about 8 hours. So if you're up for it, like literally every single person, I'd love to have maybe a bit more of a focused chat, either be it directly and we kind of do some good content or whatever. I don't want to use that word, but I mean, for example, I want to chat with Ali and hear his story about Newcastle and End and brands and buying and all of that, and then obviously definitely want to speak with Dean and his stories. And I'd love to hear more about what Dan does and his gigs down London. And, you know, you played at Glastonbury, right? Is that right? You played at Glastonbury?
Yeah, sort of on a whim, though. It's because I was working it, and then one of my old bosses was a production manager for the Southeast Corner, and I basically got a gig on the Wednesday when I was there. And he was like, "Do you fancy playing it?" I was like, "Yes, please."
I've seen you do your, like, is it your Ibiza classics, or it's like some classics that you do the events and stuff?
Yeah, I play, like, I support for like a Ibiza orchestra type thing. It's like a BTEC Pete Tong one, really. It's not as good as the Pete Tong one, but yeah, it keeps me busy as I can be.
Good stuff. All right then. Well, listen, let's wrap it up. Jay, again, thanks again for all things King Street Social, AV design. Want to have a chat about that. Really pleased to meet Joel as well, because we met through Creative Boom. I seen him on a video and I was like, he's got a wicked jacket, and I just got that's an epic jacket. It's like a John Bergerman style, big like marker pen pattern style jacket, and I was like, that's a pretty dope jacket, that. So we connected literally through that. But anyway, champion, I'll wrap it up there, lads. Thank you very much. Let's give a little wave for the edit, and I'll chop all the best.
I just had one question, folks.
Yeah.
How can I follow you all? You know, I'd love to know what you're all doing. I mean, you all seem very interesting, and you're all doing really contributing, and you wouldn't be in the call if you weren't, you know, passionate. So what's the easiest way to do that, Gareth? Instagram?
Yeah, I can just send a little email out to all of you. Or what I might be able to do is just leave a comment in the event, and the event invite. So on Google Meet, I'll just drop the comments in there, and then everyone will just be in.
If anyone follows me or isn't following me, or just DM me and I'll follow you. I'd love to connect, you know? Yeah?
Sounds good.
Good idea.
Awesome. All right, thank you very much. I'll catch you
Cheers,
later.
Gareth.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
See you later.
See ya.